The ranger's logbook entry was brief. The 3rd of October, 2019. Solo hiker reported overdue. David Paulson, age 34. Last seen at Happy Isles trailhead, 6:15 a.m. Vehicle still in parking lot. Standard search protocol initiated. The logbook didn't capture the growing worry among search teams. It didn't mention the strange discoveries that would follow. It gave no hint that David Paulson would become another name in Yosemite's list of vanished souls. The entry didn't show that this case would challenge everything the Park Service knew about search and rescue. Yosemite National Park covers 750,000 acres of California wilderness. 4 million visitors come each year to see its granite cliffs and giant trees. The park became official in 1890. Since then, it has seen many stories of triumph and tragedy. Search and rescue teams respond to about 250 calls each year. Most end well, with lost hikers found safe. But there's another number the Park Service rarely talks about. Since records began, over 1,100 people have gone missing in America's national parks. Yosemite alone has dozens of these cases. Some go back over 100 years. The park has many natural dangers. Granite walls rise thousands of feet. Hidden cracks in rocks wait for the careless. The Merced River runs gently in summer, but becomes deadly during snowmelt. Weather can change from hot sun to freezing rain in hours. But these normal dangers don't explain all the missing people. Experienced hikers vanish from marked trails. Children disappear from campgrounds, while families sit nearby. Search dogs lose scent trails in ways that make no sense. Teams find evidence in places that shouldn't be possible. Native American tribes lived in the valley for thousands of years. The Awa-Nichi people spoke of places to avoid. They told of spirits in certain groves and rock formations. These spirits could lead travelers astray. The shamans knew spots where the world grew thin. They said careless souls might step through into other spaces. White settlers arrived in the 1850s. They laughed at these warnings, calling them primitive stories, but people kept vanishing without explanation. Even skeptics began to wonder about the old tales. Park records from the 1870s show other strange events. A group of loggers reported finding a cabin that wasn't there the day before. Inside were fresh supplies and burning candles. But dust covered everything like it had sat empty for years. When they returned with others, the cabin was gone. Only a circle of dead grass marked where it stood. In 1889, photographer William Carver set up his heavy camera near Bridal Veil Fall. He wanted to capture the morning light. Other photographers saw him working. They watched him duck under his black cloth to frame the shot. When he didn't emerge after several minutes, they investigated. The camera stood there, the cloth draped over it, but Carver was gone. His footprints led to the camera and stopped. His assistant waited 3 days. Carver never returned. A month later, hikers found his photography plates on Mount Lyell, 20 miles away. The plates showed images of Yosemite Valley, but from angles that didn't exist, as if taken from inside solid rock. The first recorded strange disappearance happened in 1897. Jonathan Hartley was a surveyor mapping railroad routes. He vanished near what is now Tenaya Canyon. His team found his equipment arranged in a perfect circle. His notes described measurements that matched no real landmarks. His final entry talked about trees that seemed to move when he wasn't looking right at them. 2 weeks later, search parties found his boots. They sat neatly side by side on a granite shelf 500 feet above his last known spot. He would have needed climbing gear to reach that place. He didn't have any. David Paulson knew none of this history. He arrived at Yosemite on the 2nd of October, 2019. David was a software engineer from Sacramento. He'd been planning this solo trip for months. Friends said he was careful and organized. He researched every trail. He carried backup supplies for his backup supplies. His apartment had maps with routes marked in different colors. Weather forecasts were printed and marked up. Gear lists were checked twice. He picked early October on purpose. It avoided summer crowds and winter storms. His computer showed dozens of searches about trail conditions and safety rules. He downloaded offline maps to his phone and GPS. He was ready for signal loss in the backcountry. The Happy Isles trailhead sits at the eastern end of Yosemite Valley. Several popular hikes start there, including the Mist Trail to Vernal Fall. Security cameras showed David arriving at 6:15 a.m. He wore a red jacket and blue backpack. He spent time organizing gear in the parking lot. He checked his water and adjusted his walking poles. He signed the trail register with clear handwriting. His destination, Nevada Fall, via the John Muir Trail. It was an 8-hour round trip he'd done twice before. Only a few cars were in the lot that early. Klaus and Petra Zimmermann, tourists from Germany, saw him adjusting his pack. They thought he looked prepared and confident. They talked briefly about the weather. David said he hoped to reach Nevada Fall before it got too hot. By 7 p.m., David's roommate Ryan Morrison was worried. David always called when he got back to his car. It was their safety rule for solo hikes. They made this system after David lost cell signal on an earlier trip. By 8 p.m., Ryan was leaving voicemails. By 10 p.m., he called the park's emergency line. The ranger who answered followed normal procedure. Many hikers underestimate trail times and come back after dark, but something in Ryan's voice made the ranger act. Ryan insisted David would never break their rule without a good reason. The ranger drove to check the parking lot. David's silver Honda sat where he'd left it. Dust and pine needles covered the car. The windows reflected the ranger's flashlight beam. The search began at first light on the 4th of October. 6 rangers swept the John Muir Trail. A helicopter circled overhead. The morning was clear with good visibility, perfect conditions for tracking. They found David's name in the trail register. His handwriting looked normal and unhurried. They found boot prints matching his size for the first 2 miles. The Vibram sole pattern he liked showed clearly in soft dirt. Other morning hikers remembered seeing him. They described his steady pace. He had stepped aside to let faster groups pass. Then something strange happened. Near granite switchbacks called Clark Point, the tracks simply ended. They didn't end at a cliff edge where someone might fall. They didn't end at water where prints might wash away. The footprints stopped in the middle of the trail. It looked like he'd been lifted into the air. Maria Vasquez led the search team. She had worked Yosemite's backcountry for 15 years. She'd seen every mistake hikers could make. She'd found bodies in places that made no sense. She'd led rescues in blizzards and floods, but she'd never seen tracks end like this. The team spread out to check every possible route. They rappelled down cliffs, thinking he might have fallen. They waded through creeks, wondering if water swept him away. They found nothing. No bent plants, no dropped gear, no sign he'd left the trail at all. More searchers arrived. Climbers went down granite walls. Divers checked deep pools in the river. Trained dogs followed David's scent to where his tracks ended. Then the dogs circled and whined. One handler said his German shepherd refused to go past that spot. The dog had worked dozens of searches but backed away with its tail down. The search expanded each day. By day 3, over 40 people were looking for David. They used a grid system, marking off areas as they cleared them. Helicopters flew patterns over the forest. Their heat sensors found deer, bears, and smaller animals, but no sign of a human. Park Ranger Tom Holbrook had worked searches for 20 years. He noticed something odd about this one. Usually they found something by day 3, a dropped water bottle, a candy wrapper, a footprint off the trail. But David left nothing after that spot where his tracks ended. It was like he turned into air. Holbrook also noticed the wildlife acting strange near the search area. Birds avoided certain zones. Deer trails went around specific spots for no clear reason. Even insects seemed quieter in some places. He'd seen animals avoid areas where bodies lay. But this felt different. The animals weren't avoiding death. They were avoiding something else. On day 4, volunteer James Whitlock made a strange discovery. Whitlock was a retired Marine with tracking experience. He searched off-trail near Illilouette Creek, 3 miles from where David's tracks vanished. He saw ravens circling some huge boulders. Between 2 granite slabs, he found something red. It was David's jacket, folded neatly like someone placed it there on purpose. No tears, no blood, no signs of struggle. The pockets held energy bar wrappers from 2 days before David's hike. A park map looked new and dry. There was also a small notebook. Every page was blank except the last one. Written in David's handwriting was one line: "The trees here grow in perfect circles." This discovery made no sense. Illilouette Creek was the opposite direction from where David was going. The land between his last tracks and the jacket was brutal. Sheer cliffs, thick brush, and a dangerous river crossing. David didn't have the skills for that terrain. More puzzling, nothing showed anyone had passed through. No broken branches, no disturbed dirt, no trace of how the jacket got there. Search dogs brought to the jacket's location acted strange. They refused to track past a certain point. Handlers said the dogs acted like something invisible blocked them. Dr. Sandra Kim was the park botanist. She checked where the jacket was found. Several trees did grow in a strange circular pattern. She'd seen this in 3 other park locations. She thought it might be from underground water or old Native American farming. The circles were 20 to 30 feet across. Trees of different ages grew around the edge. The centers had no plants at all. She couldn't explain why these circles were always 5 degrees cooler than the forest around them. It didn't matter what time or weather, always 5 degrees cooler. Soil samples from the circles had strange minerals. They had magnetic properties that made compass needles spin wildly. The search entered its 2nd week. David's family and news crews put on pressure. His parents, Robert and Linda Paulson, came from Phoenix. They set up a command center at a nearby lodge. They brought photo albums, hoping personal items might help search dogs. They talked to news stations, begging for information. The Park Service expanded the search to 50 square miles. They used drones with heat sensors. Cave rescue teams explored hidden spaces. They even called in criminal profilers in case someone hurt David. Every lead went nowhere. Every theory fell apart. Then Mitchell Harper came forward. Harper was a backpacker camping near Cloud's Rest the night David disappeared. He was a wilderness photographer from Oregon. He hadn't spoken up at first. He wasn't sure if what he saw was real or mattered. Harper woke at 3:12 a.m. to strange silence. He called it the wrong kind of silence. No natural sounds at all. No wind, no insects, no small animals in the bushes. The quiet was so complete it hurt his ears. Through his tent, he saw lights moving between trees, not flashlights or headlamps. These were softer lights that seemed to come from the air itself. They moved in patterns that looked planned. They came together and split apart like they were thinking. The lights pulsed like breathing or a slow heartbeat. Harper lay frozen in his sleeping bag for 20 minutes. His camera was close, but his muscles wouldn't move. The lights circled his campsite 3 times. They never came closer than 50 feet. He felt like something was studying him, though he saw no shapes besides the lights. Then it ended as fast as it started. Normal forest sounds came back slowly. First wind, then an owl, then small night animals moving around. In the morning, he found no sign of other campers. Nothing was disturbed, but his compass no longer pointed north. His GPS showed him in 3 different places at once. Harper's story might have been ignored, but others had seen similar things. Park archives showed dozens of reports about strange lights. They always happened between 2 and 4 a.m. They always came with that unnatural silence. In 1973, college students saw lights that followed them for miles. In 1988, a park ranger wrote about atmospheric anomalies near Tuolumne Meadows. They caused radio problems and made compasses act crazy. In 2001, a whole Boy Scout troop saw lights making geometric shapes above their camp. Most people didn't want to file reports. They feared being laughed at or thought crazy, but the details matched across all the stories. This suggested more than imagination or mistaken identity. The park asked Dr. Patricia Morse from Stanford to study the lights. She was a physicist. She said certain rocks might create electrical effects under pressure. Yosemite's granite was always under stress from Earth movement. This might make electromagnetic oddities. These could look like visible light in the right conditions. But she couldn't explain why the lights seemed smart, or why they matched up with disappearances. After 21 days, the search became a recovery operation. Statistics showed hikers not found in the first week rarely survived. Night temperatures were now below freezing, but the lack of a body puzzled everyone. Yosemite's ecosystem was good at revealing the dead. Bears with their strong noses often led searchers to bodies. Vultures circled above dead animals. Coyotes scattered bones over wide areas. None of these signs appeared for David. It was like he stopped existing in the known world. 6 weeks later, Carlos Mendoza made another discovery. He was a maintenance worker clearing a drainage pipe 2 miles from the valley floor. His hand touched fabric under leaves and branches. He carefully pulled out David's backpack. It showed no damage or weather wear despite weeks of storms. The fabric was clean. Zippers worked smoothly. Everything inside was perfectly dry. All David's supplies were unused. Water bottles were still full. Food was unopened. First aid kit untouched. His cell phone in its waterproof case still had 67% battery. Weeks of cold should have killed it completely. When they turned on the phone, they found one video file. It was created 3 hours after David's tracks ended. The timestamp said 10:23 a.m. Search teams thought he should have been near Nevada Fall then. The 47-second video showed only darkness and shaky movement. It seemed the phone was recording inside the pack while David walked. The audio had footsteps on gravel and David breathing. But there was something else. Computer analysis found a low hum under the normal sounds. It pulsed steadily at 19 hertz, just below what humans usually hear. This frequency causes fear and confusion in lab tests. It wasn't in any recordings investigators made on the same trail. Dr. James Liu was an audio expert. He found more strange things in the recording. Behind David's breathing were sounds like voices, not human voices, but something using similar frequencies. They made patterns like language, but no real words. The rhythm reminded Liu of underwater recordings, where sound moves differently through water. But this was recorded on a mountain trail, thousands of feet up, in clear air. The last 3 seconds of video were most disturbing. David seemed to stop walking. The camera caught a glimpse through a gap in the pack. The image was blurry but showed what looked like trees. But these trees grew in impossible ways. Instead of growing up, they went in many directions at once, their trunks bent at angles that defied gravity and nature. Between these trees, shapes moved. They weren't any known animals, too fluid to be solid, too deliberate to be shadows. Frame-by-frame study showed these shapes stayed consistent. They weren't video glitches or damage. The phone's GPS showed more strange things. It recorded David's position every 5 minutes until 9:47 a.m. His pace was normal. He covered expected distances. Then for 13 minutes the GPS went crazy. It showed David in many places at once. Some spots were miles apart within seconds. One reading put him on top of Half Dome, another in Yosemite Valley, a third outside the park completely. At exactly 10 a.m., all location data stopped. The phone stayed on and working. Movement sensors showed activity for 2 more hours, but no location. Researchers found a pattern bigger than just David. Jennifer Okoye spent months studying missing person reports from Yosemite's past century. She found that disappearances clustered in certain areas. These weren't dangerous spots or hard trails. Instead, They centered on places with odd features, the circular tree formations Dr. Kim found, areas with magnetic anomalies, places where Native American stories warned of thin boundaries. The clustering was beyond random chance, way beyond. Okoye found scary parallels between cases decades apart. In 1952, teacher Martha Sinclair vanished during a nature walk with students. The children said she stepped behind a tree and never came out. The tree trunk was too thin to hide an adult. Her notebook turned up a month later somewhere she couldn't have reached. It had sketches of plants that don't exist. In 1978, climber Thomas Brennan disappeared from his tent. His partner slept 10 feet away. His sleeping bag stayed zipped from inside. His boots sat neatly outside. Years later, work crews found his journal. It described dreams of walking through forests where time went backward. Margaret Yazzie was an elder from the southern Sierra Miwok Nation. After months of asking, she agreed to talk with investigators. Her knowledge came from stories passed down for generations. Academics had dismissed these stories, but her people kept them with careful precision. She told of travelers who stepped between moments. They walked from sunlight into spaces alongside but separate from our world. These weren't evil spirits. They were natural phenomena, as real as avalanches or flash floods. The old people knew which places to avoid, which times of year the doors opened wider, which signs came before a crossing. Yazzie described rituals to bring back those who crossed over, complex ceremonies needing specific stones, songs, and star alignments. Success was rare. Those who returned were changed forever. Most had no memory of being gone. Some spoke of forests growing in impossible directions, paths that led to the same place no matter which way you walked. They met other lost souls, people from different times existing together in that strange space. Some never fully returned. Their bodies came back, but something essential stayed caught between worlds. These people often gained new abilities, knowledge of future events, understanding animal speech, awareness of hidden things. The official search ended after 3 months. David's case stays open. His family hired private investigators who searched another year. They used different methods: ground-penetrating radar, magnetometers, experimental devices to detect dimensional anomalies. They found many areas where equipment failed in patterns, where electromagnetic fields formed impossible shapes. Dr. Harold Vetting, a former NASA engineer, documented what he called probability shadows, zones where quantum mechanics worked differently. His reports read like science fiction, but were scientifically solid. Park authorities made quiet changes after David disappeared. They revised trail maps, moving paths away from problem areas. No official explanation. New warning signs appeared at certain trailheads. Vague words about unstable terrain and environmental hazards. Rangers got new training, including anomalous incident response. The details stayed classified. Solo hikers in certain zones now must carry GPS emergency beacons. But even these devices fail often in specific areas. Since David vanished, 3 more hikers have disappeared the same way. Rachel Thornton, a marine biologist from Seattle, vanished in May 2020. She was studying stream ecosystems. Her waterproof camera was found still recording in a creek. It showed 14 hours of footage on a card that holds only 3. Marcus Webb tried to set a speed record on the John Muir Trail in August 2021. GPS trackers showed him covering impossible distances. He seemed to run through solid granite. His shoes were found in a perfect spiral pattern on Mount Whitney, 50 miles from his last known spot. Sophia Reyes was a graduate student studying climate change in mountain plants. She disappeared in June 2022. Her field notes described watching the same meadow in different seasons at once. Flowers blooming and dying in fast cycles. Experienced guides now carry strange equipment, Along with normal safety gear, they pack electromagnetic detectors, ultrasonic sensors, devices that measure infrasound. They learn to spot subtle signs before disappearances, the peculiar silence that comes without warning, shadows at wrong angles for the sun, the feeling of being watched by something invisible. They share these observations in private forums. They build an informal database of problem zones. It adds to official park maps. Some researchers think quantum physics might explain the disappearances. Dr. Lydia Crenshaw from MIT wrote a controversial paper. She said certain geological conditions might create temporary rifts in space-time. Yosemite's unique mix of granite, underground water, and earth stress could make tiny wormholes. Sometimes these might grow big enough for people. Her research partner, Dr. Alan Jeffries, tested electromagnetic readings throughout the park. He found that certain locations showed readings that shouldn't exist in nature, magnetic fields that pulsed in mathematical sequences, electrical charges that built up and vanished without discharge, radio waves that seemed to come from underground. In one experiment, Jeffries placed synchronized atomic clocks at various points in the park. Most stayed in perfect sync, but clocks placed in the circular tree groves lost or gained time. Not much, just seconds per day, but atomic clocks don't drift. They're accurate to billionths of a second. Something in those groves affected time itself. A geology team from Caltech made another discovery. Deep core samples from the circular grove areas showed impossible minerals, crystals that formed under pressure and temperature conditions that don't exist on Earth. Dr. Monica Vasquez, the team leader, said it was like finding moon rocks in a backyard. The minerals were real. The instruments confirmed it, but they shouldn't exist here. Critics said the energy needed was more than nature could provide. Crenshaw said we might be seeing technology or natural processes we don't understand yet. Others blame infrasound from wind through granite. These super low sounds can cause confusion and hallucinations. Dr. Richard Tanaka from UC Berkeley showed that some Yosemite rocks create natural infrasound chambers. They make frequencies that affect human perception. But this doesn't explain the physical evidence, the mysteriously placed objects, the GPS anomalies, the video showing impossible landscapes. At best, infrasound might make people more vulnerable to whatever really causes disappearances. Retired FBI investigator Samuel Dorsey spent 2 years studying park disappearances nationwide. He had an uncomfortable theory. Some entity or intelligence was taking people who fit certain criteria. The missing often shared traits: above average intelligence, technical or science backgrounds, tendency to be alone. They vanished in ways showing sophisticated knowledge of search procedures. Evidence was placed to maximize confusion. Dorsey didn't guess if this intelligence was from Earth or elsewhere. But his meaning was clear. Something was hunting in national parks. It wasn't animal or human as we know those terms. Ryan Morrison still hikes in Yosemite, never alone, never near where David vanished. He carries David's photo and leaves it at trail registers, a modern offering to whatever took his friend. He met others who lost people to the park's mysteries. They formed a support group meeting monthly in Fresno. The group has 27 members now. Each lost someone in ways that made no sense. Barbara Henley's daughter Emma vanished from a campground bathroom in 2016. She was gone less than 2 minutes. No other exits, no windows big enough for a person, just gone. Mark Brennan's brother disappeared while they were rock climbing in 2018. Mark was belaying him, felt the rope go slack. When he looked up, his brother had vanished from the rock face. The rope was still tied to his harness, hanging empty against the granite. They share stories the Park Service won't publicize. They compile evidence authorities dismiss. They keep hoping to understand what happened to their loved ones. Some members have spent fortunes on private investigations. Others have become amateur researchers, learning about physics and folklore, anything that might explain the impossible. The group discovered patterns officials missed or ignored. Disappearances spike during certain moon phases. They increase when planets align in specific ways. Solar flares seem to trigger events. Sarah Wickham, who lost her husband in 2020, charted every disappearance against astronomical data. The correlation was too strong for coincidence. They also found that some areas have more reported near misses, people who almost vanished but didn't. These survivors tell consistent stories. A pulling sensation, like invisible hands trying to drag them somewhere, voices calling from empty air, the overwhelming urge to walk into spaces that looked wrong. Most fought the urge and ran. But they wonder what would have happened if they hadn't. On quiet mornings, when mist rises from the valley and cliffs glow with sunrise, Ryan feels David's presence, not gone but displaced, existing in spaces between known paths. The trees still grow in perfect circles in Yosemite groves, the temperature still drops inside them, hikers still report profound confusion, paths that fold back on themselves, sounds from no world they know. Some see brief glimpses of other landscapes over familiar trails, visions of Yosemite as it might exist in parallel dimensions or different times. A few claim seeing figures in the distance like missing hikers, always too far to reach, always vanishing when approached. The Park Service documents these incidents with special codes. Their database of the impossible grows each year. Recent events added new mysteries. In 2023, students doing seismic research found regular pulses from deep underground in certain areas. The pulses matched no known geological process. They suggested artificial origin. When students tried to investigate more, their equipment failed catastrophically. Manufacturers couldn't explain why. One student, staying anonymous, said they recorded sounds from the depths. The sounds were like technological noise, as if vast machines operated miles under the granite. Satellite photos showed another anomaly. Dr. Rebecca Martinez from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory saw that certain Yosemite areas looked slightly different in photos taken seconds apart by different satellites. The variations were subtle: tree positions, shadow angles, land details. When overlaid, these images suggested parts of the park existed in quantum superposition. They occupied multiple configurations at once. Her findings were classified. But leaked portions described zones of temporal fluidity, past, present, and future states of the landscape coexisted. The indigenous prophecies Margaret Yazzie shared gained new relevance as climate change sped up. Ancient stories spoke of times when boundaries would weaken, when doors between worlds would multiply and widen. These times came with environmental upheaval. The phenomenon responded to planetary changes. Some tribal elders believed disappearances would increase. The park itself was transitioning to a different state of existence. They performed ceremonies not to close doors, but to help people navigate them safely. They accepted that old boundaries were dissolving. David Paulson's name joins Yosemite's list of vanished, another entry in a registry spanning generations. His red jacket and blue backpack sit in an evidence locker. They rest with artifacts from dozens of other cases. Each item shows a life interrupted by forces beyond understanding. His parents still pay for his cell phone service. They hope for a message that never comes. His social media stays frozen in time. The last post is a cheerful selfie at Happy Isles trailhead. Caption: "Perfect day for a hike. Somewhere in the park's vast wilderness, in places maps don't capture and trails don't reach, the mystery deepens each season. Granite cliffs keep their secrets. They don't care about human understanding. The forest grows in patterns following rules we haven't learned to see. New theories come with each physics advancement, each breakthrough in consciousness research, each recovery of ancient knowledge. But the fundamental questions stay as solid as Sierra granite. Whether you believe in doorways between worlds or just know wilderness holds unknown dangers, one fact remains. People keep vanishing in Yosemite Valley in ways that defy explanation. Next time you hike those beautiful trails, pay attention to the silence around you. Notice if trees grow in strange patterns. Watch for shadows at impossible angles. If your compass starts spinning or GPS shows impossible locations, maybe turn back. Some mysteries should stay unsolved. Some paths lead to places with no return. What happened to David Paulson between his last footprint and finding his jacket? Why do the circular groves exist? What do they mark? How many others crossed through whatever boundary he found? They left only confused search dogs and impossible evidence. Are these disappearances from natural phenomena we don't understand, evidence of intelligence beyond us, glimpses of parallel realities? These questions hang in mountain air like morning mist. You can touch them but not grasp them. They invite guessing but resist answers. If you've experienced something unexplainable in Yosemite or any wilderness, we want to hear it. Share your story in the comments below. Every account helps build a picture of phenomena we're only beginning to understand. Maybe your experience holds a clue others missed. Maybe you saw something that connects dots we haven't connected yet. Remember, you're not alone if you've witnessed the impossible. Thousands have seen things in wild places that shouldn't exist. Most stay quiet, fearing judgment. But silence helps no one. The more we share, the closer we get to answers. If you enjoyed this investigation into one of America's most puzzling disappearances, please subscribe. You'll hear more tales of the strange and unexplained. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and maybe think twice before hiking alone when the trees grow in perfect circles.